Welcome to IndieCapitol. I'm Pamela Nash, and today I'm talking to Eduardo Sanchez, who is of Lovely Molly, VHS 2. What else? We have Exists coming out.
Yes.
And I want to get to what you've got going on. I want to talk to you first, though, about the thing that I feel like you're pretty well known for right now in the industry, and that is you kind of made that found footage, first-person genre completely soar. We were talking a little bit before about the history of it was like a handful of films that tried to make that genre work. And then Blair Witch comes out, blows it out of the stratosphere, and there were 67 films that came after that. Paranormal Activity has a 5-film franchise off of a genre that didn't really work until you did something with it.
Yeah, Dan, my partner, and I definitely popularized it. And it was, for us, it was just kind of, an experiment. We had this idea. The first thing was that, this was the early 90s, and there hadn't really been many great horror films for a while, at least films that had scared us. And Dan and I really loved, the old kind of movies like The Exorcist and Shining and Jaws. And but we also loved this kind of reality genre that happened in the 70s, with a show, it centered around a show called In Search Of, which was narrated by Leonard Nimoy. It was basically like a paranormal cryptozoology kind of show that basically investigated all these weird things, but they investigated them as a documentary, as them being real. And we talked to the guys who did In Search Of later, and they admitted they stretched the truth a little bit. So, but there was nothing really that scared us as much as those shows because they were reality based. So Dan and I, in film school in the early 90s, we were kind of thinking, could we do something like that? Could we do a movie that pretended to be real, that was a documentary? And then the idea for Blair Witch kind of came about. And we put it on hold for a while. Dan and I were still in school. We were finishing other films. And then sometime around 96, I was in a dead-end job, and I was kind of frustrated, and I was like, let's do one more film and see what happens. And Blair was kind of the best idea we had. So we shot it, and it was supposed to be more of a traditional documentary. Like there was the stuff in the woods with the kids, with the filmmakers, and then there was supposed to be a whole documentary based on the police footage and the investigation, interviews with the parents and family members. But then we realized as we were editing the film that we didn't need all this other stuff. And we actually shot a bunch of stuff, but we just ended up kind of discarding it and using it later for a Sci-Fi Channel special, to market the Blair Witch Project. But for us, it was just kind of like discovering this thing that worked. And what's funny is that there was a movie called Cannibal Holocaust, which I think was done in 1979, and it was banned in the United States. It's I think it's an Italian film. And after Blair Witch premiered at Sundance, somebody sent us the VHS. They're like, somebody emailed me and said, "Have you ever seen Cannibal Holocaust?" I'm like, "No, we've never seen it." So they sent us the movie, and the movie's pretty gruesome. I mean, they do a lot of, you can see pretty clearly why it was banned in the United States. But the story is pretty much exactly the same as Blair Witch, except these people are going to go see cannibals, I think in South America somewhere, or Central America. So, and it's basically this documentary team that goes to South America, and they've never heard from again, and then their footage is found. And it's funny because I tell people this a lot. It's if Dan or I had seen that movie, we would have never done Blair Witch, because it would have been like, well, somebody's already done that, it didn't work, or it worked, but we can't do it again. And we would have just done something else, and who knows what would have happened. But for me, for Dan and me, it was mostly, it was a good idea, and we executed it. We got exactly the right partners, and but it was a total experiment. We had no idea it was going to work, and it was just we're just kind of rolling the dice with it.
Well, how do you get actors to act like they're not acting?
Well, the acting thing was, the auditioning was kind of unique because, and actually I've used the same technique for other films, even though they're not improvisational, is the idea that, there's great actors, for different kinds of things. And we found that, really solid actors that we knew, that could do kind of dramatic, normal stuff, were not so good at, feeling real. So what we did was we auditioned in New York and Orlando, Florida, we were based, and we auditioned in LA for a little bit. But in New York, we basically just had people come in And we gave them these kind of instruction sheets before they went in, and they said, and it basically said, as soon as you come into the audition space, you're auditioning. So as soon as they would come in, we would set up some scenario. We'd say, hey, hello, and you come to us, you're in like a parole hearing, and they would have to kind of explain why they want to be released from prison. And then we would switch to, oh, you just scored a perfect 10, in that dive or whatever. How do you feel? And then they would have to turn into like an Olympic, swimmer or a diver. And we just kind of took them through all these situations just to see how quickly they could, think on their feet. And some people were great, and a lot of people just had no idea that even in the middle of the thing, they'd be like, is this the audition? I mean, what am I doing here? So there was a lot of, we got a lot of insight into like how we were going to direct these people, and also what kind of actors we needed. So it basically just, we auditioned like 1,000 people, and this was totally like cattle call, New York City, tiny room kind of auditioning with a line out the door, and this is, before the internet. So it was kind of like people would just line up and come in, and we, eventually over like, 3 or 4 months, we whittled it down to the three actors that we picked for the movie.
And this film took off like in such unexpected ways. It's got like its fan thing, and there's a video game, and so many things coming off of it, and awards all over the country, and you're going to Cannes, and what was your reaction to all of that kind of attention from something that you guys were like, well, let's just see if we can do it?
The reaction was crazy. I mean, it was just something where, after a while, you kind of get numb, because you kind of have to turn yourself off, because there's just no more like, oh my God, that you can, that can come out of you. I mean, we knew we had something cool, because we had, we were building this website, and we were getting a lot of reaction for the website, and then we got into Sundance, and then we realized, okay, we're going to have something cool here, but we had no idea. I mean, we didn't even plan the movie to go to the theaters. That's why people are always like, why'd you make the movie so shaky? People were throwing up in the theaters. I'm like, dude, we never imagined that this thing was going to be in the movie theater. I mean, we thought it was just going to be on video, if we were lucky, because our whole goal was just like, let's just get a video deal, and then we can, hopefully make enough money to make another movie. So when it kind of started, it went to Sundance, and it was kind of this big movie at Sundance, and sold after like its first screening. And the artists and the distribution company kind of reintroduced the website, and it started kind of getting very popular, and people were calling me and saying, hey, this is your movie? I can't believe I just heard, So then once, we realized that it was crazy, and actually one of our, somebody that we went to film school with called us like about a month and a half before the movie came out, and she was like, she worked at some studio or some kind of company that gauged the market, like how, because movies have a certain kind of rating before they come out, like they kind of know what numbers they're gonna do. And she was like, do you know that your movie is rating better than some of these $80 million movies that are coming out? Like, people know about it more. Like, they basically ask people, have you heard of this movie? Are you gonna go see it? And that's how kind of they gauge, how popular a movie's gonna be. So when she told us that, we were like, wow, this could be really crazy. And then when the movie came out, and it was, they launched it on one screen at the Angelica in June, I think, in New York, and every single showtime was sold out, and then it opened on like 3 screens for the weekend, and crazy, average per screen average for the time. And so we, there was like this craziness, and then everything else was just like, multiple explosions going off. And you literally go from being, totally struggling filmmaker, and really, and we were having our power cut off or our water cut off. Like every other month, we'd have some utility that we wouldn't pay, and we couldn't pay. To go from that to have this, this movie that is on, 1,600 screens, and everybody's talking about it, and you're meeting, we're meeting people like Roger Ebert, is loving the film. I mean, it's like a dream come true, and it was something that for us that we never imagined. Like before Blair Witch, probably the biggest success was maybe Robert Rodriguez with El Mariachi or Kevin Smith with Clerks. But you look at what those movies did and what Blair Witch did, and Blair Witch was just like there was nothing else like it. So we couldn't even dream that big. So once we got past the whole idea of like this movie is actually competing with with movies that cost thousands of times more than it, we knew we were in new territory, and we were just kind of trying to enjoy it. Like I remember Dan and me like in Cannes or in Toronto or wherever we were at them, and just kind of looking at each other and saying, this is never going to happen to us again. So, let's just enjoy it and, try not to get too crazy, But it was life-changing, it was life-changing, and, and it was also a scary time because for the first time ever, your film is going to be seen by a worldwide audience, and that your next film is going to be seen by the same audience. So it's just very scary to have like this very limited kind of access to what you're doing. To all of a sudden everybody's going to see it. So it's like just it's part of the reason why we didn't do any films for so long after Blair Witch, is that there was this kind of trepidation as far as like moving forward, and because all of a sudden it wasn't just making films for your family, you're making films for everybody, and it was it's just a frightening thing to have this child that you care for out and to be criticized and to be maligned by people.
It's interesting that you point out, like, you initially make it for your friends and your family, because you guys are kind of considered like pioneers in leveraging the internet to get the word out about your film too. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kevin Smith didn't really have that.
Well, it was before the internet. Yeah, I mean, look, our thing was 99, so 88 and 98 and 99. So basically, it was the perfect time. This is before YouTube and before Facebook and anything. The web was like a percentage of what it is now. But there was there weren't these big channels, but also there wasn't as much clutter. So you could kind of make your way through it, and we just built a website because that's the only thing that we could afford to market our film with.
So you had, once you kind of got back on that horse, you've kind of had a success after success after success. So let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, I haven't, never had the success of Blair Witch. We never expected to have that success again. But we keep making films, and for us, it's like just making films is we're better off than most filmmakers, than most filmmakers that we know, and I know, we can complain about what's going on and this and that, but at the same time, there's people out there I know that would switch places for us with us in a second. So we know we're fortunate, we know we're lucky. So just basically continuing to make films is kind of a dream for us, and we always try to, we always try to take it cool, stay cool with it, because we're making films, so you can't complain too much.
One thing that is really interesting, someone like you have the success with the Blair Witch, and you didn't pack up and move to LA and say, see you later, DC area. What keeps you here?
The thing about DC is that I grew up here and my wife grew up here, so we just feel comfortable, in this surroundings. And I think that there's a lot of really good filmmakers in this area, and there's a lot of kind of cultural motivation. There's a lot of things here that are interesting and kind of keep you active. And so I just love being in this area. And also LA to me was, especially back then, was just kind of really scary. The problem with LA, at least with success, is that everybody wants to be your friend, and everybody wants to kind of be close, and everybody wants to tell you that you're brilliant and this and that. So it's a very kind of dangerous place to be, because eventually, I don't know, a lot of people just start kind of believing their own hype, So it was a scary place for me, as far as, moving out there and being part of that community. And I spent a lot of time in LA just because that's where the work is and that's where everybody is. But it always feels right to come back, So, and if I ever move out to LA, it'll be under my terms, and it'll be, it'll be in a place where I'm like, okay, I know who I can trust and who I can't trust, and I have the team, and this is what I'm going to continue to work with. So,
what do you think is the future of filmmaking in our area here?
I think that the future is bright. The unique thing about the DC, Virginia, Maryland area is that has diverse weather and diverse locations. You have mountains and beaches and the bay and rivers and forests, and I mean, the only thing you don't have is desert, and it has two pretty big cities that have completely different looks. So you have the historical side of things. So there's a lot of stuff to pull from, and luckily the film incentives and the stuff that's been kind of helping to bring work here is back on its feet. Like last year was like the best year they've had in a long time, and there's a lot. There's a few people who are a lot of people working in the Capitol who are responsible for that. The thing about me that what I'm trying to do is, and I'm trying to promote, is the idea to help local filmmakers, because those are the most the people that I know are making films for $50,000, $40,000, even less. Some people are making movies for just a couple $1,000. So my whole thing is like trying to figure out if the incentive program can somehow help the local talent, because right now I think there's a $500,000 or $600,000 minimum. You have to spend at least $500,000 in Maryland to get any tax incentive back, and it's like, I don't know, any filmmakers that are spending that much money in Maryland, So it kind of segregates, the people that are making films for under that, and it's meant to just bring big, movies, and I think you need those big movies and big TV shows because they train. They keep everybody, working, and they train everybody, and it's real work, and you learn from, you're doing films with professionals. But I think there's also a little, what we're asking for is just a little slice of that pie to be given to local talent, because we think that that's really the future of, at least the creative base in Maryland. I mean, you can always attract people to Maryland by giving tax incentives and just giving away as much money as you can to the productions, but you can't make people, the people that are really making films here are making them for the right reasons. They're not making them for the tax incentives. So it'd be cool to give them a little help and, and help them just make films here, make it a little easier to make films here.
So tell us what you have going on right now.
I have a ton of stuff going on. I'm actually like the busiest I've been in a long time. I'm writing a pretty big reality show for ABC. And my partner and I are writing this. We're about to unleash this movie called Exists on the world, or at least onto the buyers. We haven't shown it to anybody yet. And it's a Bigfoot movie that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And it's like the third Bigfoot movie that I've been associated with, and it's the only one that we could get. We got financed, and we finally did it. And the creature looks really great. It's kind of everybody that has seen it is really has reacted that way. Like they've never seen Bigfoot in this way. So it's kind of what I really wanted to do. And then there's a movie called VHS 2 that I directed a segment for. It was a lot of fun. It was an anthology, like a found footage anthology, and it's a sequel, obviously, to VHS, which came out last year. And I don't know if it's going to play Maryland Film Festival. I know it's going to play Florida and Tribeca, but I'm not sure if it's doing Maryland. But it's a good film. It's a fun film. And also what I loved is just the idea that, I got to work. I didn't get to work directly with the filmmakers, but I've met them afterwards. But it's just cool to be in that kind of a community of filmmakers that are doing similar, kind of genre-style films as you are. And also, they're all young. We're like, Greg and I, my partner, co-directed the movie, and we're all like old men compared. But they've all been inspired by Blair Witch, and it's just kind of cool to come back and not really like give them advice, because they're all, very talented filmmakers. But just the idea of being in that, community and talking to them and doing the festival rounds with them has been pretty enjoyable. And then I'm doing, we're trying to actually do another, like something else, a Bigfoot thing for TV. And we're talking to a few networks about that. So this year's going to be pretty busy, and hopefully, we can continue to, like I said, make films and kind of live this crazy dream that we've been living.
Thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
For IndieCapitol, I'm Pamela Nash, and this is Eduardo Sanchez with his film coming out, Exists, which you can find on Facebook.